Want to take a moment, switch gears here a little bit, because something very important is happening in the House of Representatives. And here to talk to us about it is the representative from the 6th District in Tennessee, Representative Diane Black, to talk to us about a vote to defund Planned Parenthood. Representative Black, good morning and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me this morning.
It's a privilege to have you here this morning. Thank you so very much. Now, I actually shared the video of you with your impassioned speech on the floor of the House of, what was it, yesterday that you did that speech?
It was actually one day last week.
Okay, one day last week.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. So tell us about where we are with this whole thing and again, kind of how this whole thing got started. Was this a direct result of the Center for Medical Progress videos?
It was. And, of course, I've been a nurse for over 40 years and was a young nurse out of nursing school when the whole decision of Roe v. Wade was decided. And over those past 40 years, I have known what was behind Planned Parenthood and the kinds of activities that were taking place there, but never really was able to say or show someone. And, of course, these videos, these undercover videos, really did tear that veil and allowed us to see what was happening in the operations behind those doors. So this has now prompted a lot of discussion. Of course, as a pro-life person, I would like to save every life. But when it is the law of the land, we want to be sure that women are treated with dignity and respect, and also transparency in what does happen when they make this very, very difficult decision. And there are at least 3 laws that are potentially being broken. And I think as I watch them as a nurse, it's not a doubt in my mind. One is there is a NIH Revitalization Act that says that you cannot perform a procedure on a woman for abortion differently when you're trying to retrieve fetal tissue than when you're doing just a regular abortion. And we do see that on that film. It's pretty clear when they talk about trying to preserve certain parts of the body and how they crunch above and below the organ and so on. That's one. Another is partial birth abortion, of course, is illegal, and there are certainly pieces on that video that would indicate that that is occurring. And finally, the sale of tissue for profit. And we see a doctor, a very high-ranking doctor in the organization, who is negotiating for the body part. And if there were not a sale with a profit on that, you wouldn't be saying, oh, well, give me your best price. I want to buy a Lamborghini. You would have a fee schedule that would say, here's how much it costs to retrieve the tissue, prepare it, store it, and transport it. And that's not what we see. We see negotiating for body parts, the sale of body parts. So what my bill does, HR 3134, and I encourage people to go on the Internet, look at it, is it places a moratorium on all funding for Planned Parenthood, all funding, for 1 year until we can investigate this organization and find out what's going on. They get a lot of taxpayer dollars, over $500 million, $500 million every year. We are their biggest funder, the taxpayer, and I believe that no money should be going to Planned Parenthood from the taxpayer to begin with, but certainly if you have illegal activity, that money should be withheld.
Good for you, Congresswoman. Representative Diane Black of Tennessee with us this morning, talking about how she has introduced legislation to defund Planned Parenthood. This is getting a lot of talk, and I'm sure that there's a lot of pushback from the other side as well. I got to ask you this question, Congresswoman. When you hear someone say that they don't want to defund Planned Parenthood, and they're asked flat out, well, have you seen any of these videos? And they say, no, I don't need to see them. They've just been heavily edited. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I would especially encourage those folks who are saying that to go look at them, because you have full 10 minutes worth of discussion where there's absolutely no break. It's very clear that they have not cut and paste. And so what they're saying is just a verbiage that comes from Planned Parenthood to protect their hide. It's not true, and if they were to actually sit down and look at it, they wouldn't be able to make that statement, because it's very clear on there. This is not a cut and paste. This is a true conversation where people are sitting around the table with no regard to the value of life, sipping wine and crunching on a salad and talking about these horrendous activities. So I would encourage when people say that and they say, no, they haven't seen it, I said, well, then you cannot say that this is just a cut and paste and that this is not a true conversation, because it's very obvious, very, very obvious that this conversation is a full 10 to 12-minute conversation without a cut.
obviously, when you introduce legislation like this, you have co-sponsors, you have a number of people that are already on board with this. Tell us about that, Representative Black. How many co-sponsors, how many of your fellow representatives are on board with this?
I have about 170 people who are signed on to the legislation. I believe when we have this vote, which is going to be coming up this week, when we get back to Congress, that we will have certainly more than 218. We'll probably have closer to 245 or so. I do have some folks on the other side of the aisle who appreciate what I'm doing and say I'm pro-choice, but I don't believe that a woman should be treated this way, and that if there should be dignity if there is an abortion chosen, that will actually vote for this bill. So it will be a bipartisan vote.
Very interesting. Representative Diane Black of the 6th District of Tennessee here. We're talking about H.R. 3134 that she has introduced to defund Planned Parenthood. So if I'm hearing you right, Congresswoman, you're expecting this to be an affirmative vote in the House of Representatives. Now, I know that the Senate isn't necessarily your purview, but being as well connected as you are, what do you suspect may happen there?
I have spoken to my sponsor over there who is out of Oklahoma, James Langford, a very good man, very Christian man, very pro-life. He has the companion bill. And at this point in time, he doesn't know whether Senator McConnell will bring this up or not. They've already had one vote over there. They had a vote back before the August break that totally defunded Planned Parenthood straight out. They weren't able to get the 60 votes for that. So there's some angst about, well, do we bring this one up? It's a little different than what they did because they just flat out take the money away from Planned Parenthood. There's no investigation piece of this. And I believe that if they were to bring this bill up, that they would actually get some support, as I am, from the Democrat side, because they also want to be sure that things are being done properly if there's abortion. So I'm encouraging them to bring it up. You will hear me say very publicly that I want Senator McConnell to bring this bill to the floor, at least give it a vote. Don't throw up the white flag before you ever fought the fight. And so I will be out there pounding the ground, pounding the airwaves, putting pressure on the Senate to bring this bill to a vote.
Good on you, Congresswoman. Now, I have to ask this, too, because I think that there are some who will look at this and say, well, look, this is just a big exercise in futility because let's just say that it gets passed in the House. Let's say that somehow Senator McConnell brings it to a vote in the Senate and it gets passed in the Senate and makes it to the president's desk. It's a surefire 100% veto. He's already said that. How do you respond to someone who says, why are you wasting the taxpayers' money by doing this exercise in futility?
Oh, I feel that this is an exercise that is not a futility at all. As a matter of fact, I dare him to do that. I want to see the news media be there when he says, no, I'm not going to sign this bill, because then that will encourage people to go and watch these films. They'll be curious and say, what is it going on? And if you are not incensed by the fact that a human life, many times late-term abortions is where they really want to get this tissue from, that they are taking a baby. You know, we have been sold over the years that this is just a blob of tissue. This is not a human being. Well, you don't get a heart, a lung, a liver, or a brain from a blob of tissue. That is a baby. And I have believed over the last 40 years the only way you're ever going to change the conversation about abortion is to win the hearts and minds of people by getting them the truth. I would dare the president to just go ahead and veto this and show what he is, and show that he's in love with Planned Parenthood, and let the American people see what's really happening with these late-term abortions and abortions in general.
She spent 40 years as a nurse, now a congresswoman from the 6th District in Tennessee. Representative Diane Black is with me here this morning, and I'm Gus Lloyd. Thanks for listening to Seize the Day on the Catholic Channel on Sirius XM 129. Congresswoman, I have to ask you, too, as you talk to your constituents and you talk to others, do you think that these videos are making a real impact on the hearts of Americans today?
For those who see them and truly take the time to sit and watch them, it does change. They will be really discouraged by seeing how life is so devalued for those who see them. But the problem is only about 10 to 12% of the American people have seen this. The major news networks are not going to cover this. They don't want them to see this. And so by doing what we're doing and fighting and raising the level of awareness, we are now able to get the message out to the people. And curiosity always kills the cat. You will go and watch these videos if you hear this talked about continuously, like I want to have done. So I want this next week to be, let's just talk about it, and get people, the American people, to see what's really happening.
Do you have a date scheduled for the vote as of yet?
Well, we get back in session on Wednesday afternoon, and I think Thursday is probably when the vote is going to come up. If not Thursday, at least Friday.
All right. Well, know that you'll have our prayers and the prayers of many, many people. You're very, very welcome. Congresswoman, welcome back anytime to seize the day, all right?
Gus, if I may just say one more thing that I think is very important. People have said, well, what are going to happen to the other women's services that are provided by Planned Parenthood? I want you to know there will be an amendment put on my bill to say that all the money that would have gone to Planned Parenthood goes to the other 13,500 clinics that are federally qualified across this country. They will get the money, and they provide even greater services and more preventative services than Planned Parenthood. So we don't lose any women's services through this.
Yeah, that's such an important point because so many people are claiming that Planned Parenthood is the only game in town. And as you just said, that is so not true. Well, Congresswoman Black, thank you again. God bless you in your efforts. And as I say, we'll be keeping our eyes on it and keeping you in prayer. That's Representative Diane Black from the 6th District of Tennessee this morning, who has introduced onto the floor of the House H.R. 3134, which will defund